Hey, welcome back to the Scope Creepers podcast. My name is Aramis, and today I have none other than a developer who actually inspired some of my games. Not that the other developers I talked to don't inspire me, but this one is a little bit special to me because it's the dev. It is NewObject, aka Brian, the dev of Ballionaire. And if you have not seen or played this game, you should. It's quite a fun game, and like it looks like Brian has been putting a ton of content into the game. But I saw this game back when I was working on Hexagod and loved the simplicity of the gameplay loop and how like the pachinko roguelike mechanic works. And then throughout this conversation, I get to ask some questions as a person who loved playing this game. I get to ask it as a developer, and we kind of just like walk through the whole development cycle of a game like this, and I hope it's really inspiring to you. Make sure to go check out Ballionaire and go follow Brian. This is Raw Fury. He doesn't have a Steam page, so never mind. Just keep an eye out for his next game. I'm sure I'll talk about it at some point with him. It was a delightful conversation, and without further ado, let's dive right into the conversation. Ballionaire?
Ballionaire.
Ballionaire.
The first time I heard someone pronounce it Ballionaire, I was like, wait, what?
That's what I keep saying, so it's Ballionaire.
Yeah. I think like when Dan Giesling like streamed the prototype of it when I was like first working on it, and he was saying Ballionaire, I was like, what? Like, how could you? I couldn't fathom how people were coming up with that, but I guess they're thinking ball, and then they get the illionaire part.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't help the original font too. All the letters are these bubbly. They all kind of look, eyes and L's all look the same. So I could see how people just sort of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Ballionaire.
I think my first memory of that game was either like Retromation or maybe Northern Lion playing it. And I remember watching it and being like, yeah, this game hit the perfect, like, 'cause I usually don't like a pachinko type game. There's so much randomness, but I'm like, the art style and even the intro screen with the crazy character and like all these kind of wacky feelings, it brought me back to like early 2000s Flash games, like an era of this just like beautiful, silly, cool, well executed idea that's just like easily accessible and available. My question, so you said in the when I was reaching out to you that you've done games for a while. Where did this idea come from, and like, is there an origin story for it?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to the comment, and we can get into this. Like doing games for a while, you can see the white hair. I'm pretty old. I graduated from college in like 1997, and I went to Microsoft. Well, it's Mariners hat, but I went to Seattle and worked at Microsoft, and like 6 months into it, I was like, I hate this and I want to make video games. So I went to Monolith, the company that just shuttered last year finally after, 25, almost 30 years in the industry.
Wow.
I was a Monolith for, 5 or 6 years working on a bunch of stuff, and then, went back to like big tech or whatever. And I was there for 20 years. So Ballionaire was like the first game I'd made like commercially, and certainly the first game I made on my own that I like really finished as like an earnest game in like a super long time, kind of bookending. So let's see, the idea for Ballionaire, I'll just back up a little bit. So in like 2022, 2023, I was definitely getting to the point where it's like, I think I could take some time off and like finally get back to making games and that kind of stuff. And I guess luckily, the tech layoffs happened, and I'd been where I'd been at for like a really long time. So I had like a nice severance package and kind of had like, a good healthy amount of time where I could really work on stuff like truly guilt free or worry free or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the thing I started working on was I was really into auto battlers at the time, like Hearthstone Battlegrounds, probably like my all time most played game. And Backpack Hero had been out for a while, and so I love those two things. I started working on an asynchronous backpack inventory management combat game. And unbeknownst to me, like backpack battles existed already. And so right around the time where, luckily, I guess, about 6 months into it, I did the thing like a lot of video developers do, where you're working on a big game, and you're like, I think I'm going to take a break and work on a small game. And it was right around the time where I found Backpack Battle. So I was like, well, perfect. So the venue for the small game, which ultimately became Ballionaire, was I was on a Discord that's currently called The Secret Life of Games. Before that, it was called Eggplant, The Secret Life of Games. And before that, it was called The Spelunky Show. And it was a podcast. It was originally all about roguelikes, especially specifically around Spelunky and whatnot. Great community. Some people might know them because they did like a year-long deep dive into UFO 50 last year. So I think they found a large new audience from covering that game.
Cool.
But they've always kind of been Derek Yu. They were centered on Derek Yu and Spelunky specifically. Anyway, they have game jams pretty regularly that are kind of themed around the pod episodes they've done.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, I'll just do, this great community. I'll just do a game jam here, I guess. And the themes were like Loving Mondays and something else. And so, that was kind of the venue where this took place. But the inspiration, you see the board games behind me on my wall.
Yeah.
I think for a long time, I really thought board games were like doing much more interesting things than even like indie games were doing. And I won't even want to talk about AAA games. It's like not even anything in my universe. And so I was really coming from like a board gaming point of view. That's what I like to play.
Yeah.
And that's like design space that was really interesting to me. And the pace of innovation, at least, a few years ago, was like really intense, I think, and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So, I came from that space of like, I want this to be, that's kind of always where I was coming from a design point of view. But I was aware that like, even when I was working on like little projects for myself that never became anything, I always tended to make these like very like static, strategic kind of games. That's all I ever thought about. And so like a way of like wanting to break out of that was like gave myself a constraint that like the game should have like feature motion strongly in it, because I'd never did that basically for anything I ever worked on, because I always thought about card games and strategy,
more static
and maps and things like that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, you gotta have movement in it somehow. I'm like, this thing is on this very fragile microphone stand I've assembled here. So
beautiful.
Anyway, so for some reason the first thing that came to mind was like a game that was kind of about like pipes and moving fluids through it and creating things, and kind of like a little mini Factorio, but like couldn't figure out where to take that. And then the next thing that sort of popped in my head was like, well, what if pinball but roguelike? I'm like, oh, that's really exciting. I've always really liked making things that let other people make things.
Yeah.
Like a lot of like what I did professionally was sort of like that, like in developer infrastructure and
like tooling and stuff.
Things that are like stuff for other developers basically. And especially stuff for tools for other people to be creative. So I love the idea of like building your own pinball table, even though I didn't really like pinball, and I definitely don't like digital pinball. But when I started thinking about it, it became really clear of like, well, it's really easy for people to build like a degenerate table that traps the ball. You just put a bunch of bumpers and like this and that, and like, how would you constrain that? And I was like, well, if you put it on a grid and had some kind of minimum separation guaranteed, then I guess you wouldn't let people build like instant traps. And then once I thought about it, I was like, well, pinball on a grid is really just like pachinko basically, or plinko, or any of these other, there's actually like a really interesting history of pachinko that goes back pretty far, like before it's even called pachinko. It's French. I forget the name of it off the top of my head right now, but so I kind of had that insight of like, just put this on a regular grid and then like problem solved basically. And I think that's part of the reason, I think too, coming from that original framing of the game, or the idea of like being, physical things you put on a pinball table. Yeah. I think that's why like Ballionaire ended up having you put like objects on the board versus like changing the pegs, which I think was a lot of people's expectation coming from Peglin and stuff like that. Ballionaire does something different where it's sort of like the things you pass over are the items in play. Anyway, that's for what it's worth. Yeah. So that was kind of with the theme of like Loving Mondays and this idea of like roguelike pachinko.
Wait, how does it
really
kind
like,
of Loving Mondays? I don't understand that.
Oh, well, so I'll get to that. So
okay,
like my top,
like...
like the game, the one digital game I played all the time was Luck Being Landlord, which was the rent schedule, right? Yes. And I think they were really the first game I could think of really that had that idea of like a rent that was like themed around a calendar and that kind of thing.
Right.
And so that kind of connected in my head of like, oh, this could be like Luck Be a Landlord, but pachinko basically, with the very light theming.
Oh yeah,
of,
aren't
like,
there days in Ballionaire?
in the original like itch prototype, they were referred to as days. It would be like Monday, Tuesday, blah blah. But the final version was just drops until your tribute is due. So it's tributes.
Sure.
Yeah, there's 9 tributes. And so that's kind of where the idea got put together. And I think I don't know if you know, like, kind of like, well, probably not, but like the itch, like the very early history of Ballionaire. I went from nothing to having like Dan Giesling playing the game in like 2 weeks, basically. Because I'll say that, like, what we can talk about this later, but like I really have a hard time starting. I have a really hard time believing in an idea, knowing what it takes to like batten down the hatches to get through. Because I've shipped games a long time ago, and it takes so much fortitude to get through that. If you're going to work for a year or two, I have to like really believe in an idea. But the first time that like I assembled like the trapezoid board in Ballionaire, and a ball fell down, and the first sugar I added, which I think was a kangaroo that like kicked the ball back up, it was just like, oh my God, this is like so compelling. Like watching the ball drop, the drama of just left or right. Can I go back up the board like 3 pegs? Like that was like, I felt
then you
like
play
that
with
was
the
so
drama so well.
Be...
You figured that tension, you found that tension, and then like I can see so many mechanics explore the idea of what happens if the ball goes left instead of right. Now that you say that, some of the like the pieces you can assemble and build, it's like I really just don't want it to go right. Whatever it is, and then you have all these different mechanics trying to push it the way you want it. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, so much of the game is about mitigation. We're jumping way ahead here.
Yeah.
You know, you really can't. I mean, I should. It is possible to make a build that kind of forces paths, but it's very difficult. And the game really is about mitigating. Well, what if it does go right? How do I still get some value out of that? Yeah. And I think people that struggle with the game strategically, thinking it's too random, I think that's maybe what's missing. And the game unfortunately doesn't really help you figure that out. It's very, ended up being very kind of like sandboxy design of like the challenge is to figure it out. You know, that was my point of view. So yeah, you can't control it reliably. So what do you do in the hopeful case, and what do you give yourself as a mitigation or like a runner-up prize if it goes like,
or you try to high roll and do, you risk a lot. You risk the whole run on a ball going the wrong way, and that's okay because it's the same kind of the variance. You see the randomness play out, but it's the same randomness as not drawing the right card in a roguelike, right? It's there like a deck builder. It's the same. It's just it's presented with the ball coming out and then various decisions along the way of micropixels left or right.
Yeah. And the I guess the design space that you were talking about, that was an interesting kind of journey for me because the way I worked professionally in games before. I mean, I'm an engineer. I should say that. Like I've been a developer like since I was a kid, like a child, literally, programming, and design has always interested me, and it's always something I paid attention to. I, spent a lot of time in the indie space, even though I wasn't putting out games all through that time where I wasn't like working on games.
Yeah.
So I was always thinking about design, and I was listening to podcasts and just ingesting whatever I could on the topic. But it was really like, so anyway, when I worked in games professionally a long time ago, like that was mainly as an AI engineer. I did some networking stuff, but mainly as an AI, which is very design adjacent. You're building a tool.
This isn't modern AI tooling. This is like building enemies.
This is NPCs.
Yes, just to be clear.
Machines. Oh my God. Yeah, I know. Like that. Ruining everything. The most basic AI.
Yeah.
Yes.
Simple state machine stuff. Yeah. Like, okay.
Yeah. Sure. So it was adjacent design, but it was never like an end-to-end design of a game. So Ballionaire was like really the first serious game that I ever designed end-to-end. So it was a learning journey for me as well. And so, like part of like one of the artifacts that came out of that was I spent months at the beginning kind of going super wide, just trying like every idea I could think of. And then ultimately kind of had to like pare back, and going wide meant like there wasn't a lot of like synergies. There were a lot of like very fixed synergies of like, what if there was a thing where it's like you get a thing if it happens after it, you know, and so like there are these two things that kind of have a relationship, and that would move on to like another concept, just going really wide. And I think that like as I got to kind of like the midpoint, Ballionaire was a year from like ideation to like it shipping basically. So it's a pretty aggressive timeline, and probably about in the middle of it, I would say, you know, I became aware or more sensitive to the fact that there was too much like hard synergies in the game. And then I really needed to kind of like narrow down the conceptual space and make the cross synergies more of like a mesh of synergies versus like these very hard synergies.
Like more like a Venn diagram where stuff could overlap with each other a little bit easier.
Exactly. Like, yeah, very like hyper connected, as much as I could get it, honestly.
Yeah.
But some of those original ideas, there are a lot of things that were like, they made it from like the first time I thought of them to the end. Some of those triggers were like a year old conceptually when the game shipped. Cool. But I think just emotional attachment or whatever just like left a few of those like overly hard synergies in the game. I do think it got to a point where it was like sufficiently cross synergistic, but some people can spot those, people with good sniffers, and then they're like, there's nothing else to do with this one trigger other than that other trigger. And yeah, you know, so some of that I think was like my design beginner-ness, just kind of like making its way into the final product. But yeah, it did start by going very wide because it was a game that kind of like led me along of like so many, because it was kind of physical game, and I took the Luck Be Landlord tack of like trying to design objects that were everyday things. They weren't like the dragon and the silver dragon. It was like broom, you know, like smokestack, like whatever. I did find that just seemed to just like ideas just popped up kind of constantly.
Yeah. So you put it on itch for a game jam. It blows up basically accidentally. Like you didn't reach out to people to come play it. It just like naturally like exploded. And then after that kind of validation, you then go wide and start kind of really trying to explore the space. Is that correct?
So not quite. What actually happened was, I think I put it up on itch about 2 weeks after starting to work on it, maybe even like 10 days after starting to work on it. At that point, there were maybe like 20 triggers. And at the time I was just on Twitter, Birdsite, and I'd just seen a tweet go by talking about like, oh, so-and-so's Discord is such a great place for game devs. Fabian Fisher, Ludo Cult, who did like Rack and Slay, among other things.
Really cool.
So I just joined that Discord. Yeah. I just joined that Discord, and there was like a place where people post their projects. It was kind of like a dev and player Discord. So I posted Ballionaire, and basically the first person who saw it was Local Thunk.
Really?
Yeah. And he was positive about it. And apparently he went to like Mouth and Dan Giesling, or maybe he just went Gothic Lord. I don't know. He went to some streamers and said, hey, try this game out. And so the next thing I knew, people were like, hey, go tune into so-and-so's Twitch stream. They're playing Ballionaire now. I was like, who? What? You know? So, yeah, the rocket was kind of lit out from under me thanks to Local Thunk. And this was before Balacho had come out, although I think the demo had been out already, but it hadn't commercially released
at all.
It
still had like the idea was validated, and like people knew his name had some weight behind it.
I didn't know who Local Thunk was when he came out to like promote the game.
Maybe some of these streamers did have some like, this guy's making something special. Let me, take a look at this other game he thinks is good.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a huge boost.
Wow.
I don't know if the game would have ever escaped containment without that. So
maybe though,
luck matters, I guess.
But like it was good enough that Local Thunk liked it. It was good enough that they liked it so much they shared it. And then those other streamers, I bet they played it and didn't hate it, right? They check it out, it bugs out, it crashes, whatever. They don't have fun with it. The game dies right there, right? So it also, a lucky opportunity happened, and it capitalized on, you had a really good product. You had a really compelling idea.
Thanks. Yeah,
Would you agree?
So. And I think I think so. And I think it helped that like whatever random build was out there was a build where it was like the game kind of oscillated in generousness over time. There was actually a build where a publisher I was talking to dropped their like negotiation because I put out a new build that had like made the game like really stingy. I was like messing with some stuff that was bad. Yeah. They're like, it feels weird now. And we stopped talking. And like later on I was like, yeah, you're right. It it sucked.
Yeah.
But I think whatever build that was out there at the time that I showed it off was broken in like the most fun ways of like just super stupid stuff happening. So like people had games that were like, it was going crazy and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it,
is that where it ended up too, is kind of this more loose? Cause I think I won the first game I played, and I had it felt much more like an incremental game right away than more of a roguelike. And then as you start adding on complexity and challenge, now your decisions start to matter. But like, I feel like the first time I played it, I just got to enjoy exploring this space. It really did feel like a tutorial run that was easy and just fun to watch crazy stuff happen. And so that's something you learn from kind of working with that publisher and maybe like getting that pushback.
Yeah, I mean, I think they corroborated something I was already starting to feel. I'll say specifically, like I was starting to experiment with the idea of an economy in the game and having like a shop, not instead of a draft, but like a shop at the end of every tribute, and then like there would be triggers to give you money. It just sort of felt like, well, other games do it, I should try that, and it just completely changed the lightness and pace of the game.
Yep. Yeah. I laughed because my game Hexagod, when I saw Ballionaire being played, I was like, oh, I have adjacency bonuses. It's not like there's not pachinko and stuff, but I'm like, I definitely looked at the game. I'm like, oh, this is really good. I love some of these styles, and I've explored shops at the end of my like cycles and stuff like that, and so I laugh because I also played with some of those things and they didn't work for my game.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear that you had some, because I look at Ballionaire and it's like, it's such a simple, compelling gameplay loop. Throw the balls out, get a shop. Maybe re-roll if you want to, pick something, put it down. Good. You keep them going to the fun. And I really, really love how simple and clean that loop is.
Thanks. Yeah. And I think that's like, that was like I think that was like a test of like the editorial brain. And I know I think that I think even on Scope Creepers, other people's podcasts, you do often hear like you really have to kill your darlings, and that was kind of like, no, this is like, I want this game to be simple, but I want it to have strategy. And I think for a lot of people, the game's actually too complicated. Like the triggers are too complicated. So I didn't have an objective sense of even what was simple to begin with, but that was something where you had to kind of like really like feel you play it and you feel like the pace of the game, like there's like a lull in a movie or like a boring part of a song. You have to feel that and be like, I know it sounds like good on paper and it's going to add so much depth and a whole new dimension I can design it to, but like it just is like altering the tenor of the game basically in a way that's like not an enhancement. It's like changing what the game is.
Yeah.
To go to your earlier part of your question, like a bunch of like responses fired off in my head. They're all like fizzling away now, but the generousness of the game, like I do think that like very early on, like a design goal was to make the game generous, like nothing punitive, only ever challenge, but never like repercussions. There was some like random stuff where like you have a so-and-so chance, and it just, stuff just felt bad. And one of the tricks with the generosity, this was like something that really didn't get fixed until about halfway into designing the game. I had a problem that I had like a math problem, which was, okay, if I have a trigger that can make 300 or 600 or whatever, like, and you can scale it by 10%, okay, but the problem is that every time a ball appears, like it's effectively like all the triggers are doubled, if that makes sense. Because
there's a multiplicative effect to the number of balls is a scaling multiplicative thing.
Yeah, and it was at the time it was, outscaling anything a trigger could scale by. So the
biggest thing was just like, always get more balls is always the right answer.
Exactly. Right. So my first notion to address that was like, oh, well, let's have less balls. And so like that was like also when I was working in the economy. So the game got to a really bad point of like you go into a shop, you get like 2 spawns per drop or whatever. But now the scoring's challenging.
So like scarcity is too much scarcity.
Yeah, the game was just,
and more balls
so
is more
boring.
fun, right? Like it also is visually more striking. I remember some of the ones where it goes down and then all the water balls would shoot up to the, and like,
yeah.
What just happened there? That was awesome.
Yeah, the first board you play by default, if you barely know what you're doing, you will make a board that like freezes your computer, like in the very first level, because it's just sitting right there of like, hey, these things that make water balls that give you more water balls that also double the water balls, like I don't know, just saying.
You could do it.
So it took me a while to realize that, like, okay, making less balls is not the answer. It's Ballionaire, not less balls or something like that. So I was like, okay, I guess if like the balls have like exponential or quadratic scoring, God, I do have a math degree. I should know the difference, but
I also have a math degree,
anyway,
and I'm not going to fact check you because I don't know either. It doesn't matter.
I think it's exponential. Yeah. Cause like every ball is like doubling anyway. So like I basically like I got to the point where I realized simply like, well, scoring actually has to be like super exponential. Like the way that you scale your score things actually has to like outpace like what multi-spawn can give you. And like that was also kind of when I created the idea of cooldown, which is very obvious, but it took me a while to get there. So like, okay, I spawned another ball, but everything's like turned off,
Yes. That was gonna be my thought of how you fix that.
Yeah. The really fruitful things have a longer cooldown. That's a balance, obviously. Yep. So like that ended up being the right answer of just like, let people make trillions of balls, but then, just make sure that the numbers work such that like, you can go wide or you can go tall, I guess, to put it in like, 4X player parlance of like just a really super valuable trigger that I can hit it once per board, or once per drop and I could still win. But that required kind of be like, okay, I just need a bigger number. I need a bigger exponent than what the balls can give me. And that was just a math problem at the end of the day. So like, luckily, kind of got that fixed and got the game back on the track of just like, yes, and to like everything you're doing. So
I think my biggest question after playing that game is literally, you touched on this earlier, but it's like, how do you not get a ball to infinitely? Does every node have a cooldown where it gets hit and it goes on cooldown? So there's just like a natural decay down. Like, how do you get it so the ball doesn't, is there, my question maybe is there some hacking going on where you're like artificially pulling the ball to the floor or
okay. So,
what?
On the record, I've just got so much flack on this and like the Steam reviews of like, I know that Dev is making the ball left when I go. I mean, like, as if
I touched on a controversial topic.
I mean, I wish that I could run that logic to like figure out what would be cool if it happened right now. And it's like, do you think that like I can make sense of the chaos like in code? Like, there's no way. No, it's like fully random. Okay. And I mean like random as in like physics random. There's no like rand F ever happening anywhere. Yeah. The only rand F happening is I think that in order to avoid weird physical feedback loops, and I use Godot.
Yep.
And Godot's physics is non-deterministic. So that's not even a concern of like, well, if the ball drops the same way every time, like why wouldn't it just get in the same loop? So normally I think it's not even going to be an issue with Godot, but to ameliorate that even potential, I think like when a ball spawns in, it is like offset horizontally randomly in like a tiny little radius. Just there's a tiny amount of noise introduced, so it will like randomly kind of favor one side or the other, like at the initial spawn, assuming it drops straight down onto a pin. But
sure, so it doesn't just go straight up and down and just.
Well, yeah,
not even just induce
that
some
too. No, that too actually, because I mean, if it was they are modeled as like spherical colliders. So if the pin is a sphere, so if they drop, it will. I guess there's no reason for it to not bounce straight back up. So for that reason, as well as not to just always favor a side, just due to the physics engine resolving things in that way, due to whatever ordering
basically
it
give
does
it a tolerance of randomness, even with
just introduce a little noise, just a little jitter, which is I think is a very normal game dev thing. Is add a little jitter. So to your question, it's like I think it's actually printed like on the trigger descriptions. There is like an explicit cooldown given.
Is it everything? I haven't played it in a little bit of time. It was like last year or so.
Yeah, no, only the things that I deemed to be too valuable to have no or low cooldown. So it's completely done in balance to like its power level, I guess. So like teleporters, that's the thing where it's like if you hit it, it teleports you back to a higher one. That's a pretty long cooldown because that's a very easy way to make crazy loops.
Yeah.
Same thing with spawners, and spawners they do have like a rule. And this one was so hard to resolve, and it actually has caused negative Steam reviews of a ball so say a ball is spawned from a certain trigger, that ball cannot interact with that same spawner trigger again.
I have some similar stuff in Black Hole where I don't let stuff chain. People hate it. They're like, I want my laser to chain with my lightning. I'm like, I tried it and it becomes infinite, like almost too easily, and then the game breaks. Like there's nowhere to go when it's infinite. Like
I've had a few days where you got to Alt F4 out of Godot because it's like, whoops, I spawned too much stuff.
It's funny. You know? It's certainly funny, but it's also okay. I get why you do that.
But so people see that happen.
Oh,
they'll clock that. They'll clock it and be like, well, the physics don't even work. It passed like right through the thing. And I'm like, no, it's like, it's all I could do to fix it. And like, you know,
I'm
like,
so
you're
sorry,
not wrong.
I went
But like,
deaf.
there's a reason. I'm like, first of all, you can actually pay attention. Like most people are like, I don't know what's happening. You know, so good on you. You got an eagle eye. But like, there's a reason. It's
I
not
couldn't
just
pay attention. I didn't even know that was a thing, but it makes sense that it is a thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
that's cool. It's a very well done game. I think all things considered, like it. Looking back at the game, when did it get released?
December 2024.
2024. So you've had like a couple of years. Are you still working on it actively, or is it now kind of a dead project to you?
I would say it's somewhere in between. I would never call it dead.
Yeah.
I would never call it dead, but I'm not actively working on it. It was released December 2024. It's been a little over a year.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's only the beginning of 2026.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking back at the project, how does it feel?
I mean, it's a dream. It's a dream come true. I mean, I basically was born wanting to program, wanting to make games. I don't know. My family was kind of weird. I think that like, you know, I was born in 1975 and we were a family that had a board game closet with like 20 or 30 board games in it, which is a totally normal thing nowadays. But like 20, 30 board games back then was like all of the board games you could get in the world in like North America. Yeah. I think it was like 3M, you know, a little hat tip to Minnesota there, the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company.
Yeah. They had a board game.
We had all those like, they had a lot of board games. I mean, I have one on the shelf back there still. It's a great game, Acquire. It's like a total banger to this day. Excuse me.
What a weird thing for 3M to make.
I know, right? Well, I miss that. I mean, the Coleco, you know, the old Atari and television Coleco. Coleco was a Connecticut leather company. I mean, these companies really diversified. They're like,
how can we make it like video
and
games
also a video game? Yeah, I love that. Oh well.
Hey, maybe it'll come back. You never know.
Yeah. So, what was the question? I lost my train of thought.
How does it feel looking back at the having you know this hit game?
Yeah. So I mean, like you know, like I was saying, like I was making games out of cardboard when I was a little kid. Like I don't even know where the impulse came. Like it's pre my memory. It was just there as soon as I had memories. The first game I ever made, like when I got an Apple, my dad helped me learn how to program. We learned how to program together because he is not technical at all. Sure. It was called Escape School. You know, it was like you just tried to like move your little guy, get out of school or whatever. And I was a huge nerd. I like school, so I don't even know why I came up with that. But it's something I'd wanted to do forever. Even working at a game company, I would work on games in my spare time because it's like, well, it's not my game.
Sure.
You know, I might be one of like 3 engineers because these are really small teams back then, but it's still not my game.
Sure.
So just always wanted to be, you know, creative. And so like this was like, it's something I was starting to think was never going to happen, getting to an older age and that kind of stuff, you know, and that was making me sad. And I really miss working with creative people. And, you know, I didn't make the art for Ballionaire. That was my artist, Hanya and Dubrovko, sorry, Doobie. Yeah, I mean, it's just fantastic. I feel like that was kind of like, if I have a bucket list, which I don't, I actually have a fuck it list, but if I had a bucket list, that was like the one thing on there, is like make game. So I did it. But I want to make another game now. So,
yeah.
And that's actually to answer to your other question. I mean, that is, I personally, I really hate for anyone on Steam when people make comments like dead game, you know, blah, blah, blah. I see one that really stands out to me is Orb of Creation. I don't know if you know that. It's a, you know, pretty great idle incremental game. And I think the devs worked on that for like 4 years and has had so many updates, and it costs $4. And someone said dead game. You know, it's like this person has put years of their life into it. Costs you nothing, and you probably played it for like I think they had like 2,000 hours.
Yeah.
So I hate that stuff.
I mean
a lot.
it more playfully from a dev standpoint of like, let's start working on the next project is where it came out of. So I wasn't trying to necessarily say like
no.
the game is dead. Like that game should stand. It does stand for itself for its price, right? Like I don't think that if anybody went and played Ballionaire, they're not gonna like be like, oh, this game has no content, right? Like all these games, like,
well, go read the Steam reviews.
Yeah, you're not gonna make everyone happy. And some people's expectations are just so crazy.
Yeah. I wasn't taking it as your words. I was taking it as like I think it's kind of like a dev cursed utterance of like when someone says dead game in the comments or whatever. It's like, bro, you have no idea.
Yeah, how many hours I've actually put into this project, right?
Oh yeah. No, I mean I did count the hours for Ballionaire and it was about 3,000 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a year, but it was not a year of office time. It was like a year and a half of office time.
Yeah.
So the game did not launch into early access. What I put down on paper with the developer of what the scope of the game, or the publisher, what the scope of the game was what shipped.
Yeah.
It's what I wanted the game to be. And that's that. It even launched quickly with mod support. I had mod support built in internally from day one. There were just some kind of like, operationally, I don't think it's good to like launch with that on like day one. So kind of held it back and just get the docs improved and like legal stuff, blah, blah, blah. So that came out like in the first real patch. Unfortunately, didn't get the uptake that I would have hoped for given how much effort I put into it. But that's okay.
Do people
so
mod
the game went out. Some people have modded it, but it, like I said, it really wasn't.
We're thinking about adding it for Game of Being a Black Hole, but it's like, I don't know how much work it would be if it's worth it. And like it could be worth it in the long run too, as a game development shop to like understand how to do mod support and or like get an idea how to do that with Godot so that the next game can be on launch with mod or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's probably a question to turn around to you too. Yeah. I think about this a lot. You know, this Ballionaire was, I would say, on the smaller end of scope for a game, although I feel like there's a lot of mileage in it personally, but recognizing compared to, you know, something like an RPG or whatever, right?
Yeah,
that's a much bigger game. From what I've seen, like the patches I've put out, and I did put out like a, you know, pretty serious content patch. That was always my intent, was like at least one good content patch. We added a new level, new triggers, blah blah blah, that stuff.
Yeah,
that's, I think that's when mod support came out. The thing that I think for games of this scope, and I think I would include the shorter form incremental games as well, you know, including Black Hole, obviously. I mean, in terms of like the time it takes to get to the quote end of the game, maybe not all the time you could spend with the game, but like I've played through like some sense of like the whole game.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that like they're shorter for us to develop and their consumption cycle is shorter. I'm not convinced that like all but the very most diehard players even want to stick around for like re-engagement with the product to the point where it makes sense from a opportunity cost point of view to spend your time that way. And I think this is definitely one of the shortcomings I felt of working alone, at least from the design and engineering point of view.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not have a partner, to be clear. Like the artists that I work with were through a sister company, the publisher, and it was like a contract, like hours kind of thing. It was not like a part. Like they were not in my studio per se, if you will. Finishing the game and being like, look, like I'm old, I'm tired. It is really hard to finish a game, and even a game like Ballionaire, which is like it's dropping a ball. Like how hard could it be? You know, there was like a lot of sleep deprivation. You know, you get consumed with the game too. It's just sort of like I personally throw myself into work. And like I'm never fixing that apparently at this point, despite all my efforts to fix that.
Part of who you are.
As I was born that way, and I'm gonna literally die that way. I think. And experiencing this too, I'm really curious as well. I'm fascinated by what I understand to be a quite short development cycle for Black Hole. Maybe is 6 months end to end like accurate? Like from like the idea. Okay. For me, I found that like multiple times during Ballionaire, and especially at the end of it, I came to realize there is a like execution energy bar and there's a creativity energy bar, and like they deplete completely independently of each other. I could be like fully energetic, but like I've literally had too many ideas come out of me and there's none left.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of Ballionaire, it was definitely like this.
Sure.
And it's taken, this kind of got back fast, but this was like, this is not come back for a while. And I've realized even if I like only take a year to make a game, I might need a year of like creative recovery or 6 months or 3 months or whatever. So like, I'm only going to get so many more games out of me until I'm like literally can't do it anymore. And I'm like, for that reason, like I have to work on another game. And the bummer was like, there's no teammate to hand the game to because there's plenty of room left for it. Left for it design wise. So that's my 2 cents. Like, I'm not sure that it makes financial sense for these shorter form games to like make serious investments in it. Like at my personal time, because the opportunity cost of like, I could work on something else. And this is what I want to do with my life is to explore more ideas. Like at a very like hierarchy of needs level. And there's no one to turn over to. That's kind of like why it is the way it is. But I'm curious for you, also having worked on a short form game and even shorter timeline than Ballionaire, and I don't know if you crunched or not on top of that or didn't, you know, how do you feel? I've heard you talk about a next game or maybe more time on this game, but I'm curious, like, since you did it shorter and possibly with like less self-inflicted like brutality of like getting it done. I don't know. Question. Do you feel more ready to turn around and make a second game? Or are you finding like, crap, I didn't think I did, but maybe I do need a rest. And like, what is my actual pace that I can maintain and blah, blah, blah. Like,
you're nailing it. That's something I've realized post Black Hole is that I needed time still. Like we got lucky with it being successful and having no major like things post launch that we had to deal with. Cause we launched on December 15th. We took a very purposeful 2 weeks off in the holidays to like decompress. Even though it was tight, and I also think we didn't crunch very much, the creative bar was low. The execution bar was also low. But like, I look at it and I'm proud that we didn't crunch. I played Path of Exile 2 the weekend before it launched. I was able to still have a semblance of a life. It's something that outside of it being financially like setting me up for the future, you know, I'm in my early 30s, so it's going to help me with retirement accounts again and stuff like that. Like all that's great, but I'm most proud of the amount of like life I was able to weave into this game, because all my other games I did crunch at the end and it burned me out harder. But this last month I was trying to make something for February because I thought, let's run burn on something again. Let's do it really fast. Like we proved we can make a demo in a month and a half, and it's not going to happen. One, because we're looking at doing other stuff this year, stuff that we're excited about doing together. Thornity and I, who I made the game with. But also I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't think I'm emotionally ready for it. I'm not ready to go down that roller coaster ride again and like feel those things and just like be. It is creatively raw to put something out into the world, and like it's creatively challenging when it does well. It's a great problem to have, but it is also true that I felt very, and even now I'm having a hard time like getting those creative juices flowing again, and I'm trying to let that be. Luckily, I'm in therapy as well, and so that's some of that like intentionality. And I'm doing a lot of therapy. I'm doing therapy, but also like a lot of yoga now. So there's a lot more mindfulness of knowing where I'm at, and then trusting that if I give myself like, I think on Tuesday I ended up playing a lot of TFT. You were talking about auto battlers earlier. I've been playing so much TFT this set, and I'm just letting myself kind of be able to take those breaks when I need it, and trust that that'll help me in the long run to come back to be able to like dedicate myself to the craft, because I also want to make more games and I also want to keep doing this in the long haul. But it is interesting to feel that, and it also feels hard because you want to push, you want to like get back into it. How do you manage and have worked through that and process that?
Well, I'm also in therapy.
Good. We love therapy. I started it last summer, and it's been one of the best decisions I've made. Yeah.
No, I think and like, I mean, therapy started a longer time ago for me. And one of like, I think the most important skills it taught me is something you just touched on, which is not just listening to yourself. Cause I had plenty of internal dialogue my whole life, like a little too much internal dialogue.
Like, ooh, that thought. Yeah.
Yeah. But more like actually believing not in yourself, believing yourself,
Yeah.
believing your feelings, trusting your feelings. Like it's weird being like a math CS major and your parents being like, you're so analytical. And I'm like, you're the number. I'm like, no, like I'm actually like,
are you just me in 20 years? Like I'm also math CS and I've also been analytical and I'm also really creative too. Right. Like,
well, I hopefully your hair goes better than mine does 20 years from now. It's looking great. Can't say the same for me. No, so like I discovered very late in life that I was an intuitive person and not an analysis person at all. Like I'm 100% gut vibe. And I think every time I was in a setting where I was, the expectation was like, well, of course you're just going to crunch all the numbers and like compute all this. I'm like, no, I just kind of sit there and just feel like what's going to be right.
Sure.
But therapy got me to like, I think that my intuitions they're right more often than they're wrong. Like, therapy's helped me come to like accept that. Cause I, would be faced with like, it's this frustration of being like, it feels so right, but like my brain's saying no and that kind of stuff. Well, that sounds really bad out of context. I'm just talking about like a decision.
No. I know what you mean though. I feel that it's like this, like maybe you want it to go this certain way, but then your gut's telling you it needs to, and that like in my head it's this push and pull of wanting one thing, but then my gut telling me I need to personally go in this other direction, and that for me feels like a really big tension that I'm starting to become aware of. That hey, in my life I need to start listening to the gut situation and like explore those spaces and being okay with that, which has for me been challenging.
Yeah, and so like I think the skill underlying the listening to your own intuition is actually just listening to your body in general.
Yeah.
And that is one where it's like, gosh, I think I'm actually tired. Gosh, I think I'm actually creatively depleted right now.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think I actually don't want to do this thing that everyone's expecting me to do. Like I think my body has been giving me feedback like my whole life, and I just, I'll say like I work for Facebook, I work for Microsoft, I work for Amazon. Like these are just places where you just grind like so hard, and you like lose touch with reality of like what's normal for like you to just like accept and grind through.
Why is that?
Even it's just so normalized there.
Like they normalize in the reward
no
grinding.
matter how hard you work, there's someone working harder who's like even is like more naturally gifted than you and working harder.
So you're never doing enough.
Sure. Yeah. Gio is like this is like, I don't know if you ever had this, but my wife, she also worked in tech. She was a product manager, but same kind of thing where like I've heard this from some people, like you will feel like you're about to get fired and then you get like, like a bonus because you get like whatever, like you got a good performance review or something. But the feeling of like I'm doing a terrible job, I got to work harder is like so intense for certain really toxic dispositions. Yeah. And I wouldn't even say it's the company doing it. It's kind of just like the mindset you're in when you're in that environment. I forgot how I got onto this topic, but
processing,
there's a lot of like
release.
Don't listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Like don't listen to what your body's telling you. I used to carry a pager around for Amazon, get called in the middle of the night for whatever, and like, that's just what you do. No problem. I don't need sleep. Doesn't matter. And so there's a lot of like resetting and starting to listen to your body. And if your body's like, bro, like if you try to come up with another trigger for Ballionaire today, it's gonna suck ass. And being like, okay, I'm gonna trust you, and I'm gonna not do that. I'm gonna do the nearest thing I can to that with, because like I don't really want to give that up. But it's funny too, because like I'm curious for Black Hole, like if you experienced this, but when I was creatively depleted, but I tried to force through it, I would end up coming with things that were too complicated. I had a trigger once that was like a fucking tree, and it would grow literally like limbs up into other slots in the board and grow all around. And I spent like a full day. I mean, most triggers take like 5 minutes to implement. No, literally. Yeah. Literally. I spent like, and I looked at it at the end. I'm like, what the hell did I just build? I just built like a fake tree system, like in that, like, what the heck? And like, so every time I was like creatively empty, but forcing it, I ended up with like the most overwrought, dumbass, like super complicated trigger you'd ever seen in your life. And so like, I just got better attuned to listening to my wherever the creativity comes from. I don't know, your forearm, I have no idea, your shin. So, like, I don't know where it comes from. Just listening to it when it's saying like, stop, there's nothing left. So but yeah, I'm like curious actually, like was Black Hole, I know that from listening to other podcasts, like you've said that there was stuff you cut for sure.
Yeah.
But was there stuff where it's like you're designing when you shouldn't have been and put stuff in and then had to take it out? Or was the scope short enough? Even on one day, I know you can run out of creative juice. So you must have like run out of creative juice at certain points. And like how did you deal with that?
Hexagod taught me so many lessons. And I can blame you for some of that because your game's so good that it broke how I wanted to play it. I can blame Boucher the same way. I played that game, I was like, oh man, my game should be like this. And so it's like, I let the creative wins in my heart and feedback and push where I maybe shouldn't have pushed. That game was my source of just like spinning my wheels on game design. It's still probably my favorite game, and it's still probably something I want to like take learnings from Wormspan, which I played recently, and use some of that kind of like love for board games and worker placement, and kind of like I can see a path forward, and I'm probably not going to work on that game for a while, which is okay. But that game taught me a lot of lessons that looking at a game about feeding Black Hole, I was able to be more in touch with like, hey, this is a shitty Tuesday. I'm deep in therapy. I'm deep in like, I just need to sit on the couch right now and cry for a little bit. And like, I'm not going to be able to work today. Or I had a therapy session and the rest of the day is gone because now I'm so in my head and I just need to be in my head. And it made the game better. I like some of these lessons you're talking about. I feel lucky to have learned some of these lessons going into the game because I don't think I did as much like push the creative bounds. Like we had the tight time constraint. Working with Thornity was awesome because it was somebody who could like, we'd bounce ideas off of each other. He'd give me a build, or he'd give me a tech, the version of a tech tree I'd play, and then I'd give him a thing. And if we couldn't get a mechanic to work within a reasonable amount of time, we didn't have a lot of time, so we just threw it away and moved on with our life.
Yeah.
Which also sounds like
That's
you did that
awesome.
with that tree. You like you worked on it for a day. You kind of went a little crazy, and then you like look back. You took a step back. You're like, no. And then you, even though maybe you love that tree in the moment, you're like, this isn't actually going to fit in the game.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you've developed that skill already. To have that in your early 30s, that's fantastic because you could just labor and suffer without that.
Yeah.
For a long time. I actually think back to like working at Monolith. I mean, I loved it. It's a great experience and like a very like that was like my social world too. We were kind of lived at work, so like they're all your best friends and stuff like that. But I do think about the fact that like, well, why didn't I have this problem back then? Why didn't I run out of creative energy back then? I mean, like 60 hours was a baseline. I mean, there were periods there was 80, literally 100 hours a week.
Oh my gosh.
For weeks straight, not even mandated crunch, but just like, well, this is my
work.
Like this is my identity. So like this is what I do.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so strange. But then once way in the future, once I learn what burnout is and all the symptoms of it, I'm like, oh, I was burnt out like a lot, like a lot, like a lot.
Sure.
So I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I, just had these like, kind of like difficulties and ailments and whatevers. And I just thought it was this personal shortcoming. And it's like, well, you just can't like work that much and still forget all the like, oh, you're introducing bugs, like whatever. Like, I don't think that's even true. Like working too much makes bugs. Like, I don't think that's true. I do think working too much makes shitty work and like gets a like diminishing returns out of your like soul. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. You're losing a lot of soul points. Your cup becomes empty.
Yeah.
I feel grateful to be growing up when I am, I suppose. I'm 31. I'm grown up, but like thinking of it and looking at like, oh, there's some things in me that my dad also, I can see my dad, like some things I'm working through in therapy that my dad has. And it's like, he grew up in a time where he didn't have, therapy wasn't as normalized. Like, oh, I can go to therapy now because it's super normalized and like it's becoming more socially acceptable, which is why I also want to talk about it more on podcasts and stuff like that. Is like, it's such a useful tool. And I feel grateful that I'm able to like have grown up in a time where people are more aware of burnout and talk about it as a real thing. And even I feel like the generation beneath me, Gen Z, is like, they look down on burnout. They know when they're like, I saw some video or short or something where they're like, they're not lazy. They're just aware of their own boundaries with work. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a healthy thing. Like to have that boundary and to be able to do that. So it's something now that I'm like, I want to manage myself the way I've always wanted to be managed by managers. And to understand that me being happy and mentally healthy in the long run, or being able to express and process difficult emotions right now is far better for my studio, basically just me right now, or I guess me and Thorndy here. It's better for us in the long run than simply getting to a new patch out by Friday. Like the patch can come out next week. It's not a big deal. No one's going to die, which is great. It's not a medical field, but like those are the core pillars that I've kind of learned by doing this that are like non-negotiables for me are like, yeah, life comes first. If you need to take time off to do whatever, like go do that stuff. That is so much more important for me than like hitting a deadline.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with the case of Ballionaire, like I sat down with my family and we had a very explicit conversation of like, Dad's going to be in the basement for a year, pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, because like everyone knew that this was like a lifelong goal for me, and so it really, this was an opportunity. So it was giving it like primary slot basically, and you know, didn't travel for a year, like any of that kind of stuff. So let's see here. I'm losing my train of thought. I might have to edit this part of the chat a little bit.
No worries.
Oh, just no, I just totally lost my train of thought.
Moving forward, so you crunched a lot on Ballionaire. Moving forward into future projects, are there any lessons learned? Are there any changes you're gonna make? Are you gonna recharge and then do the same kind of crunch, go in the cave and grind? Is there? I'm more just curious. There's no judgment either way. I just want to see like, is there something, you know, lessons learned that you've gleaned from kind of looking back at that dev cycle?
I wish that I could say that like, I mean, in a lot of ways, it actually feels like starting from scratch again.
Sure.
And part of that is out of like I don't want to pigeonhole myself and make like another roguelike or this or that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a creative blank slate, which can be exciting. But like I mentioned, I'm a person that has a hard time starting. Like I have a lot of ideas. I probably made like 10 to 15 prototypes last year of varying degrees, but they all, I have a very, very, very aggressive, like early warning shoot down activation system in my head of like, nope, that's not going to work because XYZ, you know,
Sure.
Like I'm, you know, it's a little overdeveloped sense of like, why not to do something? So I really need like a really strong signal that like, this is a good idea and you should do this. I really strongly believe that like, I remember, I think like Jonas T. Roller has talked about this, the Jedi meme curve of like, you know, my idea, like the, you know, drooly guy, like my idea's everything, then it's execution everything. And then like the dark Jedi is like, no, ideas are everything. Like I really believe that like execution is actually table stakes. Like you can't succeed if you can't execute, but if you don't have a good idea, and by good idea, I really do mean like either an idea that's fundamentally appealing or an idea that is so deep and wide that it can become like a lifestyle game for, I kind of think of the world as like Rimworlds and Dwarf Fortresses over here. And then like little fun arcadey things like what we make over here.
Old school
God help you if you're in the
like
middle. I don't know what's going on if you're in the middle, but like over here, just like get in, get out, sugar fix for everybody. And over here is like, this is like, I'm going to make this part of my life to play this game for like 10 years.
Yeah. Do you want to make that sort of a game that is that huge, like, or do you want to stay in this little fun little flash game type situation?
I mean, I am a programmer first, and I was a AI NPC programmer for years.
Maybe NPC programmer is a better name for that now.
Yeah, no, seriously, but no, like really, I love doing that work and was really proud of it at the time for what, you know, we were doing. And so like I've always been drawn to those you know, kind of simulation kind of games of like, oh, this would just be like the biggest like nerd ass engineer project. I can write so much code and but I'm like, do I actually play those games? I'm like, I don't know. I have a slightly abbreviated, slight attention span problem.
Sure.
I have like 200,000 unread Gmails and like 300 browser tabs open, and slight attention problem. So I want to make those games badly, but like I'll say this, like I mean, this is what a lot of this comes down to for me is like I think like the single most important trait for game dev is sort of like self-starting, stick-to-itiveness, and you have to be able to just get through at all costs, basically, including cutting, going harder, whatever it takes, you have to get through. Like it is such a tall mountain to climb for the most trivial thing, like in terms of the most trivial game you could make. It's so much. And so like if I'm staring at the foot of the mountain, I'm looking up at all the work, and I'm like, I don't know if I'd play this game. Like, forget it. Like, why would I even like? I have to move.
You wouldn't play your own game, so why would you?
I'm gonna play this game.
Yeah. A lot.
I'm gonna play this game for a year or two at least. Yeah. So like, I have to want to play it.
Yeah.
Like that's a prerequisite. If I was on a team, when I worked on first-person shooters, I didn't play first-person shooters really.
Sure.
Just played them enough to know what I didn't like about them, and then tried to like do the opposite of that.
Yeah.
In what I was doing. But that was, you're part of a team, so it's okay. But when you're like the single person like dragging the sled over the mountain, or the one of two people or whatever, it's like
you better appreciate the view when you get to the top. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to really want to get that sled over the top. You're not just doing it because it's a job or whatever. You have to really want it.
And no one's asking you to bring the sled up to the top of the mountain.
No one gives a shit. There's 15 other sleds going up the mountain this year. So like whatever.
Yeah. Well, nod of the hat to them as they pass you by as you're taking a break. Yeah.
And then the trail of frozen corpses too, to extend the
there's
metaphor.
so many corpses on the way up the mountain. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny
too,
because you mentioned Flash at the beginning too, and it's like I was in a weird zone where I ended up kind of like not playing Flash games. I think kind of due to my age, and like when I was
it hit me perfectly. I was like, I'm born in '94, so like early 2000s, like addicting armor games, all these mini clips, like this is my childhood. And so like this is where I think right now that a lot of indies are at, is like basically instead of I don't even know how they monetized Flash games back in the day, if they even did, or if they're just like creative projects for fun. But it's like that's kind of what this like $5 game is in my head, is like this Flash game renaissance of these games you play on a Sunday afternoon and then never touch again. Yeah. Which is fun because I love those games so much as a kid.
Yeah. I think I want to put a pin in that because that's a point I want to come back to.
Okay, I'll hold the pin.
What was I just saying? Crap.
You're too old for Flash.
Oh yeah, right, and a little bit like because I was working in games at the time and super burned out, so I never wanted to play games.
Sure.
There's a whole period where I just didn't play games, so I missed Flash basically. I came back to it to like research it, but like it wasn't a contemporary thing for me. But when I was making Ballionaire and the self-doubt would creep in, and I'm like, am I suffering from a manic episode? Like, is this basically just a Flash game that I think is going to be like some hit on Steam? Like, oh my God, I'm just making a Flash game. Like, no one's going to buy this. Like, what the heck? And then I'm like, no, Brian, don't start, Brian, don't start. You got to just keep going. And so, I did. Luckily, it's sort of like, wow, I can't believe people actually bought it. Like,
what keeps you going? What's that voice? What's that keep? Because like, I think every game I've made gets to the point where I'm like, this is shit. This is shit, and I should stop doing this. What keeps you pushing that sled up the mountain when you look at the sled and you're like, I could just let this sled fly down the mountain and I'd be done with it. I could just, what keeps you pushing forward when that moment hits?
A mix of sunk cost of like, well, I'm halfway up the mountain, and also like, but the game's fun. Like I still like it, and I'm like the most degenerate. Like, I'm sorry for all of the games I've returned, and like if you look at my Steam statistics, it's like 99% of games I played for less than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I just get in, I'm like, nope, and they just pop right back out. And then I have like a couple games that I played like 1,000 hours in. That's just how I am. You have to hook me like instantly, basically, or like short. I really go for these short play loops. Like my games are like PUBG, Rocket League, Hearthstone Battlegrounds. Like, there's a theme here, right? It's like they take like 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever.
Play one game for a little bit and you're good to go.
Yeah. So I think really at the end of the day, it was like, I actually still liked the game a year into working on it. I still discovered new stuff like as strategies a year into working on it. So I'm like, if I can keep my own interests, like there must be something there, because I'm like the most, criminal game disliker I think I know, basically. But I'll say, the thing I was coming back to the pin in.
Yeah.
Was like I think it's interesting. I'm curious your experience here. I haven't seen anything like this, but don't keep close as eye as you do, obviously. But like I think there's like this. I do feel like there's a sentiment I've seen online, I guess, basically that like, oh, all these like dopamine games, they're just cheating. Like they're not really games. They're just exploiting people. They're just too arcadey. Like there's no depth or richness or whatever. And I actually like, I mean, I know I'm biased because I made one, but I'm like, I really don't believe that at all. I don't know. It's some kind of cope. I don't know for what purpose.
Sure.
But, and I'm not saying even depth, some players saying that, and I guess
Sure.
just tastes, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like, if you think about the origins of gaming, I mean, that's where things started. That's people were drawn to that. Like there wasn't like they had to, you know, the first, you know, I mean, my first thing was pre-Pong. It was like the something adversary or something like that. You know, just like it was basically Pong. But I mean, there was something immediately compelling about it. You know, I mean, humans love play and humans love simple play. Think about all the games that are folk games that everyone knows. Like they're all simple.
Yeah.
You know, and like so much of gaming, I think games really had phases. Like at the beginning, I think there was a lot of just figuring out what are the modes of play digitally. You're just exploring mechanics. And then I think in the kind of 90s, there was like a graphical, then it's like, what can we do with graphics? And then once graphics kind of got hammered out, it was like, what can we do with narrative? And that's like 2000s and the 2010s. And then I kind of feel like, you know, I wouldn't say narrative has ended, but I would say that like maybe the space is big enough now where like there's other veins and people have kind of come back around to like, well, let's go back to mechanics. Now that we have other things in place, revisiting mechanics, like what other forms of play are there? I think we'll just kind of I think we're just re-tapped into the age of arcadey and short and interesting and like satisfying. And I don't want to, like, there's one dialogue in Ballionaire. I'm just like, through any dialogue I encounter game, just space. I don't care.
If I want a story, I'm going to watch a show. I'm going to read a book. I'll watch a movie, you know, listen to someone tell a story on a YouTube video, whatever. But like games for me are really mechanic driven. Like it's,
let the story be in my head. Sure. At least that, you know, Dwarf Fortress, right? That kind of stuff is fantastic for that.
So the story of a civilization game, or you know, the CK2s maybe, or CK3 is more of a story rich type of simulation too, just like Dwarf Fortress or RimWorld or something like that.
Yeah. So I would just say, like, I think that people that are like, especially maligning devs as being like lazy or whatever, like there's almost no such thing as lazy game dev. If you're truly making a game and not an asset flip, it's a lot of work. You're not doing this for your health or whatever. Yeah. Like people that are doing it earnestly. Yeah. I mean, all I've ever thought about my entire life is games. I didn't make Ballionaire because I was just like trying to make a dopamine simulator. I tried to make a game I would want to play, which is a very specific kind of game, it turns out. Yeah. And I just think that like there's just a dimension of gaming that's kind of being refocused on right now. Not even necessarily to the exclusion of something else, but in a way that's like it's growing in proportion relative to other emphasis of more modern emphasis of narrative and whatever fidelity and that kind of stuff. So I think that's just all that's happening simply is a return to like exploring what are like quick, fun mechanics. That's how it started. So there's no reason, it wasn't like something we evolved past. It was just a focus that changed. So, you know, just wish I would like for people to be more open-minded about like why. I definitely think there's trend chasing and all that, but like for people that are exploring the space, I mean, I think they're doing it with like a tremendous degree of earnestness.
Yeah, I think that on the one hand, I'm picturing this the reviewer in Ratatouille who you know, is sitting there with a glass of wine, sitting there playing these games, being like, these aren't real games. Like this is, and part of me agrees. Like maybe these are not these like Expedition 33 level type projects that are these like fine wines that you'd want to sip and enjoy and really immerse yourself in, and these like games with beautiful failure and whatever. Like that's also not what I was trying to make when I made the game. And I think there's also a place for a game. I was picturing somebody on a Sunday afternoon. People have heard this on the podcast, but it's like someone who has a shitty job who just doesn't fucking want to go to work on Monday, who can't afford a $70 game and hates them anyways because they all half of them suck anyways, and wants to just play a game, couple bucks in, they play it, they have a good time, they stop thinking about anything, they stop worrying about all these different stress and how they can't afford groceries, and they just get to sit down and enjoy it. That was the person I made the game for. And I've learned in this with this game is like when I get feedback and I see those people who comment and other devs who are either jealous of it and don't know how to like externalize that jealousy correctly, whatever it is, like I knew who I was making the game for, and those people really, really enjoyed the game. They were delighted, they had fun, they played it for a couple hours, and if they never touched it again, I wish them well. I hope they enjoyed the game while they had it. And being able to understand that has helped me be a little bit more like, let that stuff bounce off of me in a way. I still see it, and I still like, I wish people were a little bit more empathetic, but at the same time, maybe that person wasn't the person I was making the game for, and that's okay for me.
Yeah.
Like, I also love Path of Exile. I love the crunchy, huge tree that you have to, like, min-max your pathing. That wasn't who I made the game for. You know, I made the game for myself, who had a really hard last year of life, who did have these moments, who did want to, like, not play League of Legends because it's hard. I wanted to play a game like this because it was easy and there's no failure condition. And I feel like Ballionaire hits that same, like, just a relaxing game where you don't, like, yes, there's obviously going to be difficulty to push against in moments where you have to min-max, but like you could also just play that game on the simplest difficulty and just really be delighted by what you play.
That was the goal. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's meant to be sandboxy. I think the game kind of under-explains itself, maybe to an excessive degree due to that. But I mean, the game's shipped with like, there's a lab. Like when you go to start game, you can also go over here and click lab, and it's just like, put whatever triggers you want anywhere. You
can just explore
and have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was always meant to be that, and like
probably just a dev tool you
unlock
had too,
all
right?
achievements with a single button and stuff like that. So pardon?
That was probably just a dev tool then that you were using yourself. The lab was like,
I'm like,
just the dev tool. Like, let's just expose it to the player.
Setting the board up for debugging was like, oh my god, again, I got So I was like,
reroll.
Might as well. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
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 I get that sentiment, and I've felt it from other devs. I felt it from other players, and I think your point's well taken. That there's I think even if you're trend chasing, a good game that's trend chasing still has someone who's being thoughtful about it behind the scenes and making decisions that align with their own taste, their own personalities, and someone who just simply trend chases and asset flips. That game's gonna feel bad. It's not gonna be it's not gonna resonate with people as much.
I actually think I think we started chatting because I wanted to hook up with some other incremental devs because incremental, I should, in addition to Rocket League, PUBG, incremental is like the one other genre that I really play. And that's the only genre of linear games that I finish.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. I mean,
I never finish Rocket League, right? That's a game where you're never done playing Rocket League.
I finished it when the match. I finish it after I've been told to kill myself by my teammates. That's usually when I log out of Rocket League.
Yeah, you're like, okay, cool, I'll be done now.
Yeah.
League's the same way. Yeah, same.
Yeah, I mean, for games that have a definitive, for a game that has
a game over screen.
Yeah, like a linear, even a game that's like replayable. It's still there's an end.
Yeah.
Incremental, the only ones I've ever finished. And for those, I would say the more like active style of incremental, like Black Hole, Tower Wizard, like that kind of stuff, Digzium,
Not so like I also don't like the idle side of that incremental space. I'm much more of the active. Obviously, with the game I built is the one I wanted to play. So yeah.
Orb of Creation for me being a big exception to the rule. But what I was going to say was like, first of all, I guess anyone that is like suggesting, I mean, I would say it is definitely easy to start making an incremental game, but I would definitely challenge anyone that thinks that they're like low effort grabs to like actually finish one. I think that like in my experience as a player, in my initial foray into designing one, I think it's like one of the most like, what's the right word? Like effervescent genres to design for, because it is not like, it's so feels based of just like do I feel like the tempo is so important.
The tempo and pacing is everything.
When did I get my new little shiny treat? And like,
novelty.
And the scale of it, you're already the number, like I know even for Ballionaire, like I don't want to say balancing because Ballionaire did not want to be balanced, but it wanted to like have the numbers kind of make sense and like the pace. Yeah. Okay. There's so many like,
if you're not making billions on your first
was
one.
The word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like ethereal was the word I was looking for. It's like really hard to grasp. I think what makes an incremental game be good. It's not like because there's 30 swords, because it's sort of like, no, it's really, you're trying to get a feeling that literally does not have a name. Well, actually does have a name. I have a little list of like non-feeling feelings that I keep that I think developers should work towards. We can talk about that if you want, but I really think it's like very ethereal genre and player response that those games go for that is very hard to get because you can't get directly at it. You have to kind of just do stuff. My limited experience, you have to do stuff until it feels right.
Yeah.
Is that accurate as a lay thinker of those games? And like, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
It's all feels based, and one of the hardest things is eventually you don't understand the feel anymore. Just like in Ballionaire, it's like eventually you're like, is this game good anymore? And you're like, yeah, it's still kind of fun, whatever. Like, it's all about pacing to get to novelty, and we kind of lost that touch about a couple months in because we just played it too much, where we don't understand the novelty anymore, which is where playtesting and other people feedback all of a sudden becomes super imperative. But yeah, it's all feels based, and it's all about if there's a 3-minute chunk at minute 7 to minute 10 that feels bad, can we compress that down? Do we remove it out? Do we put a novel thing in here? Or do we just making it so it just, it has to feel good? And that is like, I think the thing about a game of Feeding Black Hole that kind of hit well is like, you can play Chess Survivors, you can play Hexagod, you could play like all these different prototypes. You can see Black Hole in all of those games. So I brought forward all these experiences, all these things. So it's like, yeah, it was a 5 or 6 month thing that I executed with the help of Thornady, who had made Click and Conquer, he's coming into this game with a bunch of understanding and experiences that we were able to leverage for thinking about pacing this well, for like handling the tree and doing balance work. Like, we came into this with basically the tools to be able to execute a game of this quality in such a short amount of time, but there's thousands of hours of work, just like your game, right? There's thousands of hours of you thinking about games before you make Ballionaire. And like, I want to hammer that home again and again and again that this isn't overnight. This wasn't my first game. I have so many videos talking about how many failures I've had along the way and how I tried to learn from those failures in the moment. And so, yes, it's feels based and it's pacing, and there's a lot of work to execute on that well. And I also think meeting Thornady and working with him, and then my dev skills at that moment, kind of was the perfect confluence of these like different skill sets that were able to create the game and have it be good pacing and have it kind of actually feel good to play.
Yeah,
because it is feels based. Like, you're a math major, don't put formulas in your game would be my advice. Like, monkey around with different things that just feel good, right? Like a linear line up the tree probably doesn't feel very good. Like a spiky line that, like, I mean, the life's full of spiky lines. Life's not a linear path to the end. It is full of these troughs and spikes and valleys. And like, I think an incremental game should follow that same sort of principle.
It's interesting because they really kind of play much more directly in the space that like a movie or a song, I won't say book because it takes so long to consume that.
Yeah, song is a good one.
A pace of a movie or a song where it's sort of like, I actually can't, like, I listen to a lot of metal, and like, if your song's at 11 the whole time, I mean, there can be an issue. You need dynamics.
They come back down. I'm getting into metal right now in these last couple months, and so I'm feeling that, like, yeah, they'll have really loud screaming, kind of high energy, and they come back down and they start singing again, and then they crescendo back up.
Yeah, and so I think what I'm trying to say is, like, I think almost much more than other genres of games, incremental games are tasked with creating the emotional resonance that a movie or a song is going to go through. And that actually, I don't think that can mean like a steadily paced drip of things either, because you're missing the opportunity of like denying the player for a little bit too long and then like giving them a
It
bigger
can't be
reward.
too
like,
long, right? It is a threshold where it's like too quick and now the next thing doesn't hit. Too long, they get bored and stop playing.
Yeah. So I think I think they're really interesting games from that perspective because see, no one objects to like, well, I listened to a Coldplay song and I felt a certain way. Like, no, you're like, this is like handing you the feeling. I mean, I'll say that pejoratively. May have some opinions on music. Anyway, like these things, like they give you a prescribed emotional response. And I'm not even saying like it's a different set of feelings too, because I would say it's not emotions with like an incremental game, but they're feelings, which is different than emotions.
Yeah.
But they're kind of tasked with delivering the same way. Like there's a pacing, there's a tempo, there's too fast, there's too slow, too heavy, too light. I think much, but no one checks like other forms of medium doing it, but so
all the other things that are pacing, and I think this is something that like Thornady hit home immediately with me. Is like, our tree can't be one big grid. Like, we played Keep on Mining, which we took heavy inspiration from. Like, we played it, like we love that hovering mechanic, how simple it is. It has one big grid that you get to explore as you want. And the downside of something like that is, what if your players make the wrong decisions? And you can probably balance that tree so it does have this nice pacing, but I think that takes a lot of time to do. And we didn't have a lot of time. We wanted to make it quick. And so our tree has a linear approach. You go through with these different big nodes, and we use that to be able to balance section 1. We want 5 minutes, section 2, 6 minutes. And like, that comes at a trade-off. 10% of our reviews all say the game is too linear. Yeah, 90% of them absolutely loved the pacing of the game, and they finished the game and they loved it and they had a good time. And like, a lot of people loved it so much they played the alternative game modes, and just kind of kept exploring and playing the game. And like, that linear tree was literally designed from the beginning so we could have a really tight control over the pacing. The timer and how long it took to do each round of also a mechanism so we could control the pacing, so we could get you back to the upgrade tree. We tried to make it so basically every time you went back there, you get one purchase, so you go back and forth, and like, you had these nice little moments. And even the upgrade tree itself is a small break. That is, you could think about that as a lull where we're resetting your dopamine a little bit, or resetting the feeling. You're taking a break to be a little bit more analytical about which of the 3 choices, because it's kind of, the tree also works out to be that classic choice of 3 that you have in Ballionaire. And then you can come back in and now feel your power.
Never thought about that.
Yeah. So there is choice.
I didn't notice it while it
doesn't really matter which one you pick, because all of them are fine. We don't really care. You'll eventually pick all of them. And so it does. Yeah, I love that metaphor of it's kind of like a song or analogy, whatever the right word would be there. But like, I love that kind of you're playing with the people's perception and teasing them just long enough with the mechanics, so then they can, all of a sudden electric asteroids pop in, and you can see people's brains be like, oh, this is my new purpose, is to click asteroids that have electric on them. Cool. Right? Like, you can see that and feel that.
Yeah.
Have you felt that with your, so you teased out a little bit of like these feelings, and maybe this will be our final topic we'll touch on here. What are some of, you said there's feelings that players or devs should be working toward. Do you have a list? Is this something that is explainable here?
Yes, I have a list. I came prepared. Well, I was like, I did set some intentions for 2026, which was sort of like, oh, I want to like.
You are in therapy. My therapist just introduced the idea of intentions to me. My intention word is alive for the year. I want to feel alive and do things that honor that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have your own intentions for the year.
Yeah, and and those were largely around like, I think I just want to be a little more present in the discourse, I guess. I don't want to become a YouTuber, but I think I would like to talk on video about just like my thoughts on game design and stuff like that. And it's really simple. I'm going to edit that. Just going to leave all the crap in.
Yeah.
But anyway, on one of these like vacations from work, which all vacations were a few years ago, like on the beach, I had this, thought of like, why do we only think of emotions? Like, first of all, we have like 6 senses, but like, why is feeling not a sense? Like, why are emotions not a sense? We count taste and touch and all this, but feelings are just doesn't count for anything. Maybe we should talk about that in therapy. then I kind of was just thinking about it got me thinking about like emotions versus feelings. Cause I like, again, not being a narrative gamer, like I'm not going to have an emotional, I didn't cry. I'm not going to like story just does nothing for me.
Sure.
But games are still compelling in ways that like I found hard to articulate. I'm like, what am I feeling when I feel compelled to play a game? So I started thinking about like, well, what are feelings that aren't emotions? What are those called? Or like, what are examples of that? And I started thinking about those through the lens of game design, and a couple of them came to me, and then I've been slowly, like, as I sort of discover other ones, I just kind of keep them in a list, and it's not a very long list right now, but I'll kind of go through what I have to this point. So I wanted to talk about this in 2026. And I thought I would make some vlogs or whatever, but I guess we'll just do it here, at least to kick it off. So I'm calling these things brain tickles, which is a term I've used in a couple other podcasts I've done. So these are basically feelings that games make you feel that aren't emotions. So not saying they're better or worse, they're just different than the sort of like classical romantic emotions.
Yeah.
And so let's see here. Okay. So the first one is insight. And this is that sensation when like you figured out something that was not overt. You feel like you learned something. So it's like in Ballionaire, it's like, okay, there's like the jump rope knocks the ball back up, and then there's the tree that when you hit it from below spawns a coin. Oh my God, I forgot my own game. I think it spawns a coin. Jeez. Wow. And it's like, it's never explicitly, I mean, I haven't played it recently, to be honest. It's never explicitly told to you. And I think even there's a board where it's set up to like, like make it very,
sure.
That one it's introduced. It's
lead
sort of like
water.
suggested.
Yeah.
You're led towards it, but like, and every player will have that feeling specifically. It's not going to go in a wiki. It's not like, oh, I saw the YouTuber. It's sort of like, I had the insight. I am clever. I figured a thing out that was not explicit. And that's another reason why I like do not do like as fucking hand-holdy tutorials.
I hate tutorials.
You rob yourself.
The rest of my games will never have them. I'm done with them. I've killed them. Yeah. Insight.
So insight's one.
We did this. So I want to talk about, we did it in, it's in the game when you hover over, it's this moment where you start by just hovering over one and breaking it, getting money. Cool. But the thing we wanted to teach you really quickly is that it's really fun to try to find the min-max of hovering over more than one.
Yeah.
Incredibly intentional. Yeah. The whole beginning of the tree is literally designed and upgraded in a way where the first upgrade you get is going to add time to the clock, which just to teach you that there's a timer. 2 is increased AoE. And then the third one you get is more stuff so that there's just more overlapping. And so we like try to trick your brain, and we can see people play it. We watch a bunch of YouTubers, and you can see them have this, oh, I can try to get 2 at once. And so they have that. It's a very small, it's not as fun as a roguelike insight, but you have that fun little moment of that insight moment. It's also why I think moons slap. So once you figure out moons are good, you feel like you've come up with this new strategy of like, oh, my purpose is to get moons. That's the new strategy. And you feel like the game, like my friend was playing it, and he's like, oh my God, I'm so powerful. I'm so good at this game. And I'm like, dude, man, that's the tricky part, is like, I do feel like I'm tricking the player into having these emotions and feelings, but they're still feeling them. They're still genuine feelings. It's just the way we presented the game.
You're facilitating it.
We're heavily pushing you toward that bucket of water to say, here, go drink some water.
They're probably they're not likely to experience it without being provided that. I mean, these are feelings that can be hard to get in real life.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what we're selling.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Or romanticizing. You remove the complexity of life, and you romanticize the ability to, you create an experience where they can get that insight in an easier to deliver fashion.
I mean, if I love comedies, I just watch movies and they make me laugh all day long. What if I love feeling clever? How do I get satisfied with that?
That's why I play TFT.
Yeah.
Cool. Insight. I'm on board for that. Okay. I think that's a beautiful one.
Okay, I'll do another one. So there's Precipice, which is this one originated with the Spelunky podcast I was talking about. So I suck at Spelunky. so I haven't played it a ton.
I'm not a king myself, so yeah, it's probably hard for me.
It's a very difficult game, and you can like really a good run can like end super fast. And there's a health system in Spelunky of hearts. And someone's comment on the podcast was like Spelunky is never better than when you're on your last like heart, because like everything is so dramatic. You're on the precipice of victory or death. And so this is really easy to like kind of like get with score, like a score attack kind of rent games, because it's wild. The number of times I've seen a streamer, like, and luckily like a big streamer, where like they passed the score total by like $100, out of like the score is 100,000, you make 100,000 and $100. And I'm like, how on earth, like with so much stuff going on, how did it happen?
How did you nail that?
It happens a lot. It happens a lot. It's like a freaking miracle. This is not programmed in. It was like designed in the sense of I put stuff into Excel. I made a model of assuming this many balls fall and they branch this many times, and I just did this like really rough napkin
numbers.
model.
Yeah.
And like these numbers kind of work,
Sure.
and like the number of times it creates that precipice of like you win on the last drop is like, I mean, I lucked out. That's just straight luck.
Also,
but like that is it's so important, and you can have a game that has that, or you can have a game that doesn't have that. It's very easy to get that one, but like, is it dramatic? Is it dramatic when you like you win the last swing, maybe like an auto, like I know some of them do it better than others. I would say of like the feeling that like, I just barely beat you.
It feels
some of them
really good.
don't portray the drama of that as well as other ones do.
Ours is our version of Precipice for Game of Thrones Black Hole, because I think I want to try to translate this each time. I think you did a great job with Ballionaire, and I would argue that you pick the numbers, then you probably reverse balance stuff around that. Like, this strategy, this cooldown needs to be not 3 seconds, it needs to be 6 seconds. And like, if you just pick that each tribute is X, Y, and Z, then the game all of a sudden has structure to be balanced around. So
I'll say this really quick, just on a technical point to your comment. I literally did that at a point during Ballionaire. Once there were dozens, I found it too hard to start tuning all the numbers. I literally made like an enum of like low score, medium score, high score, and then I had a modifier system. So of like, it's low score, but you need to do this thing like carry. These were all just like a bunch of like C# like tags that I had in an array that was like on the definition of the trigger. And there's a formula this is all passed to, and that's like how much it earns. So I could just be like, well, medium one should earn a little less. It just like, I just rebalance the entire game with like literally changing one number.
Oh, interesting.
And so like, yes, I absolutely came up with like a, n dimensional framework of like all of these elements, and would just tweak the numbers
until it felt right.
In those discrete dimensions, not like per trigger, but just kind of like, having to carry, when you get like stuff going behind the ball, having to carry as a prerequisite to earn money that's not too hard to do. So it should only give you like 1.2, not like 2.0 or something like that. So I was able to kind of do those gross scaling. Sorry. So for Black
TFT
Hole,
devs
for
talk about it the same way. I've been watching Mort Dog talk about it, and he talks about what a forecast should do and feel. And so you can hear them, some of this language you're using also be like, you have staples of these because balancing in roguelikes it's a reason I moved away from them as a thing I'm interested in building, and why incremental is more fun for me right now. But I think Precipice is the black hole growing. You can see time and time again, people are like, I almost got there this time. I almost got to this next level. I almost there's a precipice in the overcoming of that. Even though there's not a downside to not doing it, there is an intrinsic upside to hitting it. And so you're rewarded for growing the black hole. And I would say, in our own little mini way, Precipice comes in there. And I like that because I also feel like in Slay the Spire, I have many memories of barely winning. In TFT, I have many of I got to, literally the other day, I got down to 2 health, and I almost got 8th place, stabilized, and got 1st place. And it's like, that moment made that game feel like one of the best TFT games of my life, because I almost failed, and then I ended up winning. And that is quintessential to gaming for me too. Yeah, clutching up and surviving. There's
a flip side to Precipice that I call domination, and it's just literally the reverse of that. Like, have you ever had a TFT run or in my case, Battleground run, where it's like, I just got like gold.
You just high roll and you win
everything. Yeah. I'm just smashing the shit out of everyone. They're just like, they're quitting. Like, they're literally showing up with 1 unit on the board just to make their loss go faster.
Yeah.
And like for big number games too.
Yeah.
And for even like any, I think there are very simple paths to this, which is like literally like Ballionaire. At one point, the numbers were small, like physically small on the screen, and because I just made them like literally bigger, and like people like that better because like the number is physically larger. It feels like you're doing something more dominating.
It takes up more space, and you're like, nothing's changed. Your perception has changed, and you feel dominant.
Yeah, the value is the same. The font size is now 96.
Yeah, we do the same. Yep. The bigger the number, the bigger the. It's simple little tricks like that can like. It's already a good thing, and you're just like visually reinforcing that it's a good thing. So the player's brain is like, yeah, okay, cool. This is definitely the good thing.
Yeah.
Domination.
Another one I'll toss out really quick because we all know it. I call it kinesthetics, but it's basically what we call juice. So I think juice is like one of all of these brain tickles. But kinesthetics does go beyond juice. You know, I think people take a lot of juice to mean like special effects and like UI jigglies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it can mean more than that. I think just the fact that there's motion alone in Ballionaire is already kinesthetic. And this is a very subtle thing that not a lot of people notice, but I actually run a shader on the ball so that when it's moving, it actually does like the Disney, it stretches. And when it hits a peg, it squashes slightly.
Sure.
And it's not the physics aren't changing. It's still just
it's just the visual aspect.
Yeah, but it's doing like the Disney animation of stretch and squash for exaggeration, just to emphasize, you know, the motion's so important in the game. All you're gonna do is watch a ball fall. You might as well just like put all the bells and whistles on it. So because
I think there's a lot of little things like that are stuff that you don't really notice as a player. And like I think juice, you feel it. And I think for me as a developer, it was like I'm doing 10, 15, 20, 30, 100 little things that slowly add up to be a game that feels good. It's not one. And maybe you can point to, when you hover over a button, you hear that nice little sound effect. And if you put the right sound effect on a button hover, people will go like this on the button and go brrr, and like it like tickles their brain in a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
That's more easy to see. But then there's also just these little tricks that just slowly add up to be a game that feels good. Juice.
Yeah. I mean, when they're not there, you can tell it plain as day.
When you come
into a game and like there's no response and the response is there is like linear. I mean, if you have a linear animation in your game, whatever you're doing, just stop now.
Change it to ease in, ease out. Just default
nothing
to
in
ease
nature
in, ease
is
out.
linear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nothing about that feels natural. That's like automatic, like run away from it in your brain when you see something linear because it's not natural.
Life's not linear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's an easy one. Just change I feel like even like Godot should default their curves to just ease in, ease out. They shouldn't default to linear curves. Because I always change them every time.
250 milliseconds.
Yep.
Done.
Boom.
Yeah. I mean, no one ever got fired for doing that. Just saying.
Yep. Yep.
And I get into some like ticky tackier ones that are maybe reiterative of some of the earlier ones. There's Anticipation, which I think is related to Precipice.
Mm-hmm.
But,
it is.
But different. It's different.
It's related and it can manifest in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Orders of Magnitude, I think, could be related to domination, but it is a separate thing. So even if you're playing a game that doesn't even have a venue to dominate, like people, this goes back to the old like Sid Meier's quote, like when you're gonna change a number, only have it or double it. Like people don't feel things until it's like at least like an order of magnitude difference. That's why these games with like these. I think a lot of games are like this, where there's sort of these like fidgety, like 0.1 type increases. Like,
I hate that.
Does not hit.
I can't feel it. I have no idea that it's better. It probably is marginally better. And like, we tried out trees like that, and we literally said, "What's the point? Let's just give them all of that. Let's say, you get 25% crit chance, and now a quarter of them crit, and we'll balance the tree around the fact that they're going to crit in the future." But like, one of the first upgrades is like plus 50 asteroids, and you start with like 30. And so it's like plus 100. Like all of a sudden the screen is full of way more asteroids. And what we did is it built a contract with the player. It showed them, hey, we're going to take you on a journey here. And then I think we took them on the journey. And so like we make a contract early. The upgrades are going to feel big and punchy, which also has a trade-off of then it doesn't matter which upgrade you pick. So people just go to the upgrade tree, they pick one, they move on with their life, which is also kind of what we wanted to do. But some people don't want that game, and that's okay. Those people can go play Path of Exile. It's a great game. I would highly recommend it. Anticipation. What was it? That was the word. It was anticipate. No, it was order of magnitude. Yeah,
orders of magnitude.
Order of magnitude. Yeah.
I'll say something right now that will just get me laughed out of the room, but I think there's only 4 numbers that game devs need. It's 2, a half, 1.1. That might be it. 1.1 I found, and I've corroborated this with other roguelike devs. When you're talking about exponential growth, anything over 1.1 just goes insane. Like it doesn't work.
Sure.
Anything under 1.1 just feels like shit. It feels like it's basically linear. 1.1, if you like plot it out versus linear growth, they hit at like a very healthy, not too late, not too early. And like for like a thing you're going to do like dozens of times, that's dozens, not like hundreds, but dozens of times. It leaves you in a number of a domain, a range of numbers. It still like makes sense.
Yeah,
I guess. And so like 1.1 for anything exponential.
I can see that for roguelike being really helpful. I think we do exponential like each time you go up in a color of object, that's like increasing its health essentially. But then we also exponential health goes up linearly. Money you get from it goes up exponentially. And I think those are like we maybe are at 2. Like it's an aggressive thing because we want it to feel really punchy. And so it's not a roguelike. There's no balancing there. It's simply then we set it and we balance the tree's cost around that. So we can start at $1 and end with a quadrillion dollars. So there's a reason.
To be clear, for I mean, the whole comment.
I like 1.1 though. That's a good one.
But for 1.1 though, I mean for something that you're going to apply multiple times.
So
like
it's
you know, in like Ballionaire, if you got the
Yeah.
upgrade like 10 times in Ballionaire, there's all kinds of triggers that like every time blah blah gain 1.1x. You're going to do it like 40 times.
Yeah.
You know, like every drop it's going to happen once you have it. So that's where like I'd say the 1.1 for exponential
so
X-Molt if you're a Ballionaire player.
1.1.
I mean, and half is just really 2.
It's just a different version of 2.
And 2 can also be 2 to the X or X squared. So 2 is doing a lot of work in this equation.
Yeah, I like that. Nice and chunky.
Yeah.
Any other ones on the ticky tack list? The last little bits.
Nothing that I feel good enough, like nothing that I'm still feel certain about. Yeah, there's just a bunch of like, I hunt for these. I try to find new classes and I try to find games that embody them. I had coziness on there for a while, but I have kind of removed it. First of all, I want to point out the work of someone, Bree Code. She was like a programmer on like a Call of Duty tactical game. She's worked on a lot of games. And I think kind of like left the game industry, and she was like espousing this concept like 10 plus years ago called Tend and Befriend, which is the opposite of fight or flight. So this paradigm where instead of things being threats or to be, you know, fought, it's sort of like cultivating. And it was like she was like doing a lot of like lectures on this topic.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, I wouldn't say it begat Cozy Games, but it was maybe like co-developed when Cozy kind of came into whatever it is now. But I think, I don't know, I have like some opinions about Cozy Games as they stand. And so I don't want to, first of all, it's not a good word to use. I think Tend and Befriend is a much better expression.
Yeah.
To capture what resonates with people in Cozy Games. And I think these kinesthetics, they are based around like competition. Like the ones I've listed, the brain tickles I've listed, other than kinesthetics, they are based around kind of fight or flighty stuff a little bit. Yeah. So I just wanted to like leave room there for something is like on the Tend and Befriend side, because they're still not feelings. They're still not like emotions. It's something else when you're helping someone or growing something, cultivating. Maybe that's a brain tickle. I don't know. So
because there's something there for sure. There's a feeling I get that is not maybe it's partly some of those other feelings, but it's like there's something else. I agree. I mean, I'm about to noodle on that one. The only one that maybe came to mind was Triumph, but I think Triumph comes with those other words as well. Because like thinking of a game like a Dark Souls game, like that game's all about triumph. It's about fail, and then finally learn enough to overcome. But those, I think that also comes in some of those other words you did, like that. you get that with like the anticipation of finally killing the boss and then the precipice of
the
like
insight,
failing and coming back and the insight. So it
Yeah.
is baked in there. All right, yeah, you covered Triumph then in more maybe discrete pieces, which is good.
Well, I'm still fleshing these out, so if anyone out there in podcast land has other brain tickles they can think of, I'd love to like assemble them. I really would like to get it into kind of like some like lightly formalized thing, just because I feel like these are things that are happening in people's brains when they play, but we don't really have words for all of them other than juice. I think kinesthetics is the one that we've kind of, people know what it means when we say that, but it's definitely not the only one.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'll noodle on that one for a little bit. My final question for the podcast is scope creep. How do you manage scope creep? What's your relationship with it? Do you manage it? Do you let it flow through you like evil and just come out into the world? Maybe evil is judging it too hardly. What's your relationship with scope creep and I guess if you have a process of managing it?
Well, I would say this is something where like my non-game professional career was helpful. And maybe it's just even my personality, kind of like my bread and butter professionally was to like simplify things.
Mm-hmm.
Just even conceptually, not just necessarily scope, but like it's too complicated what's happening here. Like there's simpler things that'll get us to where we need to go. And I am like deep down like an editor. Like one of my most perverted pleasures is to help someone edit a resume and get it like word by word wordsmithed, like so spit shined. Like
Sure.
that is so satisfying to me. And so, I mean, so I think it's kind of like, it is my natural disposition to like question why something's in there and to find simpler solutions.
Sure.
You know, the programming me loves a big sprawling. I mean, actually, I should say that like, I'll finish the question, then I'll make one more comment. Like, yeah. So I think it's a little bit ingrained. The way I found to add value in a way that was like often differentiating professionally, which was to like simplify, reduce. Those just have created dispositions in me where it's sort of like for a project that's in motion. I think I can't answer the question in terms of like scope for when you start. I mean, I definitely know when something smells too big, but I only really have experience with like something's in flight.
Yeah.
How to like keep it on track or pare it down as you're going. But to get started, I'm wrestling with that right now.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I've been trying to like come up with the next thing, and there's like, well, it's probably going to be bigger than Ballionaire, but like can't be that much bigger, or maybe it should be smaller. I guess it could be, you know, like I don't know how you incept the right scope. I mean, it's definitely a sense you can get.
Yeah.
But that's trickier than like making tactical decisions when you're already have all the momentum going, of how to keep the momentum going and not getting spun out.
Sure.
And I think part of it is to just experience. A lot of things, you just get a sniffer for them. If you really just like
make a lot of
kind
mistakes,
of like
fail,
swim in it for decades, like you just get the senses built up, the instincts.
Which I think is experience. Like looking back, there's always different careers I've had. I've done different types of things in my experience already. And like, it takes a couple of years before you can kind of just have that gut instinct we were talking about earlier of like, hey, this problem we're solving, maybe there's a different problem that's actually causing it. Or this thing, this idea may be great, but boy, that's probably going to cost months to do. Or that's going to make this really hard. And like those sort of gut instincts maybe are right, maybe are wrong, but I think that's where experience comes in to develop those feelings. And that just takes time.
Everything's a trade-off.
Yeah.
So you're kind of constantly always playing. It's funny with board games, now that I think about it, the kind of game I really like is like bidding and auction games where you have to make a value assessment over something, but it's like way too hard to actually math it out. And you like literally just kind of size it up.
Yeah.
And you feel like, is it worth it?
Yeah.
And that is like an actual skill, I think. My wife's much more analytical than I am. She's definitely, you know, so she has a harder time with those games. She doesn't like to, she wants to know like, what's the actual optimal answer? But I'm like, it's just uncomputable. You have to just gut feel it,
Yeah.
And I think that can come into this, like, what am I trading off for what here?
Yeah.
Because everything's a trade-off, right? Like that's implicit in like scope consideration.
The hardest thing as an early developer, I feel, is that you don't have the unknowns are so big, and you've done software for years, right? It's the unknowns that bite you. And if you can like quantify an unknown, like, or just have an experience to not make it an unknown, or like an unknown is even crazier, where it's like you don't even know that you didn't know that thing, right? So as you start to make more games, you start to understand even just the space you're playing in for the game to get that, oh, if I want to make Stardew Valley, that art budget is going to be crazy, right? Like that's probably not a feasible first game for anybody to make. And stuff like that comes with time. So your experience is like once you're actually moving the sled up the hill, you're much better at being able to like, no, not this, not that. But it's the challenge for you is getting over the hump of like, which sled do you actually take up? Which sled and which mountain, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah, and an empty canvas is simultaneously the most exciting and most terrifying thing in the world, I think. So
the new project smells nice, but then it's also like, well, what do I put in here?
yeah.
Awesome.
And that's it. Also that, well,
you can keep talking.
I'll make a note here. Sorry, just was one of those thoughts I had that I finally came back to, was like the mountain might move under you while you're climbing it, by the way.
And there's false peaks. There's many false peaks along the way.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I got on a false peak in Scotland once in like the fog, and I started fucking freaking out. Like come over the top and there's like another hill. I'm like, oh my God, where am I?
You're like, oh no, is this Groundhog's Day but a mountain?
Yeah,
like, oh my God.
Pretty much. I'm going to die in the Isle of Skye. They're going to find my body. A sheep's going to be, wait, they don't eat meat. Anyway. So I would say a valid critique of Ballionaire was that it does not explain itself as a game. That was intentional, but I misjudged how people would explain it to themselves
poorly,
I guess, or like they would go to places the game let them go, but was not prepared for them to go to in terms of their expectations. And so, like, specifically what changed from the time I started Ballionaire to the time I finished Ballionaire was the roguelite-ification of games, meaning you get more powerful as you play no matter what. Every time you do a run, you get more stuff that makes you more powerful, that makes it easier. You're getting more powerful as you go. That was not a gamer expectation when I started Ballionaire. It is, and it was at the end of it.
Yeah.
And it's also not terribly important to me as a gamer. And so there's all kinds of reviews of Ballionaire that say that correctly say the game gets harder as you unlock more content instead of like, I get more powerful. It's because that's what I made happen.
You made it tight and easy to play the sandbox, and then now the loot pool gets really big and gets more complicated, which is also a satisfying thing, but that doesn't necessarily also correspond with more power.
It's asking you to grow, to be more improvisational when you can't just high roll what you want. You have to make do. And like, you can absolutely win the game on that, the highest difficulty level.
Yeah.
Like, people streak. But if your expectation as a gamer is that like, this looks roguelite-y, I'm used to getting my rewards every time I go through a loop, and I'm taking all these things it's offering me, but I'm getting like worse at the game. It's because you've actually jumped ahead of like the skill check.
Oh,
so that
you're like
changed.
ahead of your skis now, and they fall, and they're like, well, you're on the wrong hill. You didn't master the bunny hill yet, and now you're on a blue slope, like, or whatever the difficulties are.
Yeah. So like, I didn't really realize that until after. I don't think I really realized like how pervasive that design trend had become in such short amount of time.
Yeah.
And like, there's no way I was going to like correct for that. So I think it's a criticism of the game that exists, and I understand where it comes from, but it's sort of like, that was not the norm when I started, and I only worked on it for a year. So it's like, I wasn't like 8 years. I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to play an RTS anymore? At the end of it. So you gotta go fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Things change, and player expectations change a lot too.
Yeah.
Do you care about that?
That's a fascinating question. Should we talk about art versus commerce now? I mean, look, I think I found the best way to explain it is like, I think some people say this like, I don't care if the game makes a lot of money or not, but I do want a lot of people to play it.
So you do care, right? You're like, but you do care about the money.
No,
not saying you. I'm saying that
the
person in this example. Yes.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't like, I'm making a thing. Oh, it's like I'm making the game for me.
Yeah.
But like, I want people to want to play it.
We also live in a capitalist society, so you do need to be able to fund your life in some regard.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say this, like, I think Rami Ismail has made this point of like, even when you see an indie game that's made a success, like what's actually underlying it. And what was underlying it for me is 30 years of working at Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, like all those things. Like, there's a reason I could afford to stop and like take this risk very safely, the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I want people to play a game I make. So you have to exist in balance and accommodating expectations somewhat, at least having like a plan for, you will encounter expectations. Like, what is the plan? Will you subvert them so expertly that you will change the paradigm? Okay.
That sounds hard to do.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Do you want to meet them halfway? Will you cater only to the expectations? Like, I think it's just a continuum.
Yeah.
That you can find the right balance based on your own commercial needs and your own artistic yearnings. But like, I think that part of what makes any creative act so scary is like, for some people you are sharing yourself, and Ballionaire is very much myself. It is me, like in a game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. It's like putting myself out there and wanting to be received well, because it's sort of like sharing my taste and sense of humor and like all this stuff. So like, it's kind of like, I made the game for me, but I want people to like it. So I kind of want to meet them somewhat halfway.
Yeah.
Having no tutorial was like fucking pole on the ground for me of like, can't stand tutorials. Like there's like the guy floats in and talks to you like 3 times, like press this button to drop the ball, because people had trouble with that apparently. But like, is very minimal. So
it's my favorite part of a game about Feeling Black Hole is the game. That's why I like played Keep on Mining. I was like, you can't not play the game. There's literally like the play space is 0. Like you have it follows your mouse around, and eventually there's not a lot on the screen. You're gonna hover over something and accidentally start breaking it. Like, the problem is people started clicking too much, and so I had to like put in a negative reinforcement of like, hey, these are useless clicks you're doing every round. You don't need to do them. And like that has helped. But I appreciate that sentiment, and that is such a beautiful attention that hopefully gives context around choices you make. And you're not going to please everybody, and if you want to have a lot of people to play it, you also have to meet some expectations somewhere and find that where you're comfortable on that gradient.
Or have a strategy for how you're going to win people over before you get like erased off of the upcoming list. It has to happen fast. So
as a board game player, there's also kind of a fun min-maxing side of Steam to try to min-max the algorithm and stuff like that, which has been interesting to learn about. But
well, I let my publisher handle that personally, because I just want to make the game.
Exactly. I have so many questions I want to ask you and keep following up. This has been a delightful conversation. That just means I'm going to have you back in the podcast for the next time you have a brain tickle. Once you have added a new brain tickle, we can come back on and talk about that more. Or
that'd be awesome.
When your next game is ready to be talked about more publicly, that'd be also cool.
Talk about, but ready? I don't know.
Never know.
I gotta pick a mountain.
Yeah, sweet.
It's been great to be on here. Thanks so much. Yeah, super fun. Absolutely. Congrats on your success. Looking forward to seeing what's coming next. I'll definitely play it, whatever it is. So
likewise.
Yeah.
A pretty cool conversation, if I don't say so myself. I ended up talking to Brian for about another hour and a half after that. We have to start recording. It was fun to talk about non-recording stuff, but it's safe to say that I'll likely have Brian back on the podcast in the future to chat some more about game dev. If you have any ideas for little brain, I think you'll brain tickles, leave them down in the comments for different feelings. I think that was such an interesting part of this conversation. And yeah, it's really cool to have played a game years ago that I absolutely loved and was personally inspired by as a developer, and be able to talk to that dev and ask him questions about the game and I hope that came through. Ballionaire really, really did hit me at a spot with Hexagod where I wasn't quite sure what I was doing and what I was working on, and it really helped kind of clarify a little bit of the simplicity, at least for the current version of the game. And for that, I thank Brian. I think the people who helped find that game and stuff like that. But it's really cool to have the podcast doing stuff that I wanted it to do. I wanted to be able to have conversations with cool developers, and I'm going to continue doing that this year. If there's ideas for people you want me to chat with, you can leave them in a comment. Send me a carrier pigeon. Don't send me a carrier pigeon. I don't know where. I suppose I could just open the door, like tap on that glass and say, let me in. We could probably do that. Otherwise, I'll be going to GDC here at the beginning of, it's in the second week of March. So I'm hoping to be able to chat with some developers and stuff like that to learn more about their process, to share those conversations with you if I can. I've applied for a press badge, which would be kind of cool because apparently this channel is probably big enough to maybe be considered press, which is absolutely incredible. So we'll see how GDC goes. I'm hoping that we get some conversations either on this podcast or over on the main channel. I'm rambling at this point because I like the end of the podcast. I get to hang out with you, and if you're listening this far, I'm assuming you liked a little bit of ramblings too. Yeah, I don't know. That's it. I hope you're having a good day. It's a scary world out there. I went through my own shit here in Minneapolis with my community, and hopefully someone that's drawing down at this point. And in moments of tragedy, like Mr. Rogers says, look for the helpers. I went and volunteered. I went and participated in some protests and stuff, and it really, really gave me a new perspective on hope, which is something I needed. So don't forget the hope. Don't forget to look for the good. Acknowledge the darkness. Look at the darkness. And then also lift up the good. I've been Aramis. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.